Welcome to the Inside Out Money Podcast.
Can't even recognize this place. Too many pieces of our past mistakes.
Hi, I'm Maggie, and I believe real change starts from the inside out. So let's work together to improve our money and our lives from the inside out. We will explore all things money and our relationship with it. Join me each week with a rotating set of co-hosts, friends, and interviews. Let's jump in.
It's time, we going round and round and round and round and round.
I am ready to roll.
Ready to rock and roll, Gregory. Okay, Greg, what's today?
Today is the first day of 2024.
That's a trick question. What's actually today?
Christmas Eve. Christmas
No.
Day.
It's Christmas Day. But, so we're recording this on Christmas Day, but this will go live a week from today, which will be...
New Year's Day.
Right, there we go.
Yes.
We're confusing ourselves.
I'm excited I got that right after 4 or 5 tries.
Yeah, you did good. You did good. So, Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to Inside Out Money. If you're not sure why you're here, what's going on, Inside Out Money is a personal finance podcast focused on redefining wealth from the inside out. Each week, I speak with a rotating set of co-hosts about a different financial topic to help you improve your financial mindset and tactics. Today, we've got Greg, aka my husband, aka Gruber, aka...
That's it.
Oh, I was going to throw in some other AKAs. Greg's awesome. I love him. He's kind and patient. And he's actually the perfect person to have this conversation with, because if there's anyone that I think is pretty fantastic at like what's on the inside, it's you.
Oh, well, I appreciate you saying that. And these are the types of topics that I get more excited about. The technical, the how to do something, obviously very important. But when it comes to what gets me just a little more excited to talk about topics, it's often topics like these about kind of the mindset.
You're a very like philosophical, introspective person, right? I mean, it's one of the many things I love about you.
In other words, I'm a thinker, not a doer.
That's not true. You're both. When you're told what to do, you
Yeah.
execute flawlessly, you know? Okay, we're getting off topic here. It's the new year. Everyone always has all sorts of New Year's resolutions, and this is a good time to kind of, have a fresh start, a clean slate, whatever you want to call it. But for me and for Greg here, this is a good time to even refocus the purpose of this podcast, which was always meant to be focusing on our insides, because everything you need to do to be successful in life, I believe, starts from the inside out, which is, again, why I decided to name this podcast Inside Out Money, because so much of it is about what's on the inside. And in money and financial stuff in particular, and trying to improve those things in your life, like 90%, I would argue 99% of it is so much about what is in your head and your mindset and your mentality around money. Of course, the execution and the tactics are important, but they're not nearly as important as getting your mindset and your mentality around money right, because that's where the true progress is made. And I think that's where you're able to make meaningful and positive change financially.
And sustainable change too,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
And we'll touch on that too throughout this podcast, that your mindset around money and saving money is not a one-time thing. It's something you will constantly revisit, and something we revisit often. And you have moments where you are doing well at it and other moments where you're not. And so it's an ongoing thing. And I think, as you said, the know-how is obviously very important, but all of the know-how will not lead to lasting success unless kind of the mindset is there, the motivation.
And yeah, I think, Greg, your point is critical, that even when it is there for a beat or a minute, it can go away very quickly. You get something thrown in front of you that's tempting. It's easy to get off course. It's a constant correction and adjustment to kind of get back to where you know you want to be, I think. And I think we face that. As much as we might seem like we're on top of things, or certain things are very easy to us, we're constantly battling might be a strong word, but we're constantly discussing and having to check back in with like who we want to be.
Right.
And if our actions are in line with that, and if our specifically if our financial actions and decisions are in line with that. So look, I think it's also worth noting, my belief is that so much of this is, an inside job, as we say, but there's also a lot of external factors, right? There's a lot of things that we can't control. There's a lot of places where we all got a different starting point in life. And, Greg and I both can check our privilege right here to say that, we both got a very good starting point in life. We, whether actively or directly or not, had goodish financial role models in our lives growing up. We, had people that helped us go to college. We had good influences in our life, and we had a very good starting point. And we're, I think very appreciative and recognizing of that. And, that's going to be different for everybody, but all we can do at this point is control what's right in front of us. And all you can do that's listening is control what's right in front of you and what's in your head and what you're telling yourself to do and wanting to do and getting your own mindset right. But again, it is worth noting we all have different starting points in life and financially, and that there's so many different external factors and hardships and adversity that some people face and that others don't. A lot of people get constant leg ups in life financially from, from the very beginning, from something they're taught to an inheritance to, their college is paid for or not or something like that. And then there's other people who have all sorts of things that are constantly kind of cutting them down and making them take 2 steps back financially. And, my biggest guidance for that is just all you can do is control what is in front of you right now and the decisions you make today. And, there's some value in appreciating where we all came from, but not using it as an excuse, if you will, to stop you from being able to make better decisions in the future. Do you agree with that? Does that sound right?
I do. Yeah, I think that all you can do is control and do the best you can with what you have right now. And
yeah, don't, no need to dwell on the past again. And I think there's value in recognizing it and then moving on. So on that note, let's jump into what we really want to get into today, which is some it's easy to talk about how this is an inside job and how you've got to get your mindset and mentality and kind of change the way you think about money. It's a lot easier to say that than do that. So we're going to do our best to talk about some things in a fairly tactical way and prescriptive way to give you some specific things that we would do to improve how you think about money and to kind of focus on the inside, if you will. And I think the first thing, which I think this is the first step in AA, Greg, isn't it? What is it? I don't know why I'm asking you, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean,
what is, it? Doesn't everyone know it?
Admitting you have a problem.
There you go. So I'd maybe state it differently for this one. I think that's the first step at least. But I think the first step is really accepting and understanding that this is an inside job, right? And the connection between your mindset and your finances. Because if you don't, you'll constantly be pointing to all these other things that are happening around you, maybe having a victim mentality, all sorts of approaches, and not saying, I want to get my mindset right about money and taking accountability and ownership of it and recognizing that this is the most important step, right? It's not a budget template or tracking your expenses, which I think are super important. It's getting your mentality right about the stuff that I think really is the first step.
Completely agree. I think you've got to decide you are going to change your finances or continue on a path. If you're happy with the path that you're on, you've got to be in the right mindset. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to follow through on things. And again, as you acknowledged, there are many external things and things that will try to knock you off course and feel like setbacks. But at the end of the day, you have got to be the one who overcomes those setbacks and who, keeps your ship sailing in the direction you want. You've got to follow your destination.
I was waiting for some more like ship and sailing.
Yeah.
Put the mast up.
You've got to set a course for the destination you want to reach, and no matter what happens, follow that course. And that comes down to you. So there's a few things too specifically related to that. Maggie, do you want to kind of hit on some of those?
Yeah, so I think just to belabor this point a little bit more because it's so important, there are all of these barriers to improving your mindset that can stop you or hinder you from making progress with your finances, like fear, limiting beliefs, a scarcity mindset, a fixed mindset, right, versus a growth mindset. And a fixed mindset is you could reposition that or rename that as like a victim mentality and constantly thinking, oh, there's nothing I can do to change. Like I've had all these bad things happen to me. I just like to spend money. I like to shop. It makes me happy. Whatever it might be that's stopping you. I'm never going to be able to pay off this debt. All these things, that's a fixed mindset. Versus a growth mindset is I can change. Things are malleable in my mind, which is true, by the way. It's scientifically proven that you can change your mindset and that you can rewire your brain. It's called neuroplasticity. It's a real thing. So there's all these barriers, but on the flip side of that, there's that growth mindset, which is you've got to believe that it's possible to improve your finances and that you are in control. So I'm not big on like real fluffy, like, oh, the power of positive thinking and whatever, but I do believe like you have to believe this is possible or you won't be able to do it.
Right.
And you have to, have positive energy in your mind around gratitude and optimism and generosity. And again, not having a scarcity mindset and just realizing that you can change your mindset. It's going to be hard work. It's going to take discipline, but it's possible.
Yeah, I think along that point too, there's times too where, one mindset might be, well, if I'd started this earlier, but I haven't, and almost delaying it, putting it off, saying, oh, I'm just not in a good state now. So it's hard sometimes to like peel the Band-Aid off and sometimes dive into something that is unpleasant at first. And when you do start looking at these things, you might have all these thoughts of, oh, well, I didn't do this and I wish I'd done this earlier and that was a bad financial decision. Again, all that is the past. It's all very real. Those are very real emotions, but you can't let those real emotions keep you from drawing a line in the sand and saying, I'm going to start doing some things differently now. And it's hard, it's scary, but you've got to just do it sometimes. And I speak from experience on that, not just financially, but I'm the kind of person that sometimes when something isn't up to date or isn't where it needs to be, once I've procrastinated or I've not done something, I'm even more likely to not want to dive back in.
Yeah.
But eventually you just have to do it. You've really got to jump in. And that's a lesson I've learned over the years is just sometimes pull that Band-Aid off, get in there and start doing some work.
Yeah. There's the phrase of like, what's the best day to get started on It's like today. I'm butchering that phrase, but it's now.
Yeah, or it was yesterday. What's the second best is today.
Today, right. There you go.
One more general theme related to finances being an inside job is realizing that money doesn't buy happiness. I think money can buy you things that temporarily make you feel happy, but money doesn't bring happiness. And on the flip side, once you move to a level of having financial security and then even financial independence, that actually can bring a sense of happiness. What I will say is that even then, there are things that will make you unhappy in life, but having that security and knowing you can weather any financial storm that comes up really brings a sense of well-being and reduces stress enough that you can do the things that really do find happiness.
Yeah, I agree. Like we talked about with a number of things, Greg, recognizing this and accepting it, I think is like step one. That's easier said than done. So like many things, I hear so many people, and Erica, one of our co-hosts, says this all the time. She's like, I know what I need to do, but I can't do it. Like I'm not motivated. I don't want, when I get in that moment, I make a bad decision and I see myself doing it. And so it's not the like what, it's the how. There is one very specific and tactical, I say tactical because, but it's very like multi-layered and multifaceted, but one specific thing that you can do to help change your mindset. And I referenced this earlier, but this is like scientifically proven, right? The concept of neuroplasticity and the idea that you can change and rewire your brain and rewire your thinking. It's a real thing. And there's one tool that's super helpful for actually being able to do that, right? And it is, Greg, this is like your sweet spot, an area of expertise.
I would say expertise is maybe a stretch, but
Well,
yes.
Just because you're humble.
I do think a lot about this. And so this is mindfulness is what you're referencing.
Yeah.
And, for I believe most people have heard of mindfulness and understand kind of the high level thought of it. It's really kind of the secular application of a lot of Buddhist principles. But I think mindfulness is the act of anything where you're saying, be present in the moment, be intentional, have space between an impulse or an external
Space between like a desire and a decision.
Specifically when it comes to finance, yes.
So when you see something and you immediately are like, I want that. And then you say, no, I'm going to let like a few days pass that's actually an exercise in mindfulness.
Yeah,
You may not
that's-
realize it, but you are being more thoughtful and intentional and present, and you're not allowing yourself to rush a decision. That is one way of being more mindful and intentional with your money.
Right. And it's the same philosophy of when something happens and someone says something to you that you want to react in a way that might not be a positive reaction. Take a few breaths, allow there to be some space, and then react. And you will generally react from a wiser, calmer, more thoughtful place. And that's kind of mindfulness. I mean, there's many other aspects of mindfulness. And I think something, if this is something that speaks to you, worth doing a lot of reading outside of this. But I think mindfulness is a real key tool for making good decisions, because even as a couple that has really tried to pare down our expenses, I think we are all victim to desires popping up. At least I can speak for myself. I see things, I see cars, I see electronics, I see advertisements, all things that
You see a neighbor who has something.
yeah. And the first reaction in mine is not always, I don't need that, because my first
You're so
thought
content.
is, I want that. That looks cool. Wow. If I was opening that present today on Christmas Day, I would be a little bit happier. And then I have to realize that that is a very temporary feeling of happiness, and that it probably would not bring any lasting happiness. And sometimes I have to not beat myself up for having that feeling, just realizing that is a human emotion. We are driven by our most primal instincts to see something, to want it, to possess it, to grab it, because
Yeah.
that's what kept us alive when there was a piece of fruit that was actually going to provide a lot of nutrients to our body. But now you take that basic primal instinct and put it in this modern world of excess, and it doesn't really work for us. So we've got to use mindfulness to say, normal human reaction, that's okay. I'm not flawed, or if I'm flawed, we're all flawed. Let me just sit with that for a second and realize that that's really not going to bring me lasting happiness.
Yeah. And I think, Greg, earlier you said like a victim to our desires. But I often think like we are a victim to an incredibly consumeristic society that is pushing all of these messages of excess and just instant gratification and more and more and more. And we'll
Right.
talk more about that later. But the idea is cultivating more mindfulness in your life can make you better equipped to deal with those situations, which you will face for the rest of your life. Unless you plan on going and like moving to the middle of nowhere and living off the land, and you're still probably going to face some of them when you come back to civilization to, you know, stock up on deodorant or, I don't know, some basic need. Actually, you don't really need deodorant if we're like living in the middle of nowhere. Bad example, but you get the idea.
We would both be wearing deodorant even if you and I were living in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, that's a nod towards me, to be clear. Greg's telling me I have to wear deodorant.
I'm just
if
saying,
I want...
unless you were alone in the forest, you'd probably still want deodorant. But
Okay, that's fair.
I digress.
Off topic.
So mindfulness really comes from a lot of Buddhist teachings. And Maggie, even to your point of this modern world we live in, Buddhism was developed by the Buddha thousands of years ago. And even then, the Buddha realized that a lot of our suffering comes from our desires. And even back then, before we lived in quite as commercialized of a world, the Buddha realized that as humans, we are constantly desiring and wanting things. And we are often just following these desires. And each time hoping that once we attain that desire or we attain the thing that we desire, we will then be happy. And then we have a very short-lived happiness, and we realize that we aren't happy. And a lot of the Buddhist teachings was really that lasting happiness and contentment can never be found through those external things. And that happiness is really achieved through being present in the moment.
It's an inside job.
Exactly.
Just to use more basic terms,
Yeah.
even.
It's an inside job. No amount of rearranging the outside world or purchasing things or material things around us can ever really bring lasting happiness. And that lasting happiness is achieved through being present, appreciating what we have, appreciating the people around us.
I think this is one thing that I've always known on like an academic level, Greg. And I think I've also like known it internally because I have come to realize over the years, mostly in my 30s and beyond, that nothing externally was going to create any sense of lasting happiness for me. Perhaps some convenience in life, but not like lasting happiness. But I think leaving our jobs almost, now a year and a half ago, was a very good exercise in like, you think you quit a stressful, demanding corporate job and you're just like instantly happy the next day. Like, no, you still have the same things to work on and kind of deal with inside yourself of, why you do the things you do and what makes you happy and what triggers you and what makes you anxious and what stresses you out. And so I just think for me, it was like another big reminder that you can't quit your job and all of a sudden have like all the freedom in the world in a sense and just like magically be happy.
Right. I completely agree with that point. It is something that we've talked about when we've kind of debriefed on our learnings from, a year of retirement. But it is just like the money and the fancy items you could purchase won't make you happy. Sometimes reaching your goal of retirement doesn't alone make you happy. The security we have, the lack of stress are all things that create a more conducive environment. But we still, when I am most happy is when I realize that my happiness is the people around me and being present in the moment and being appreciative and having gratitude for the fact that I'm alive and healthy and with the people I love. And I have to keep reminding myself that's an ongoing lesson that I have to relearn multiple times.
So let's come back to this point because we're going to hit a lot of things related to this. But one quick thing on mindfulness that is a very tactical recommendation is just meditation, right? So another way to cultivate mindfulness is through developing a meditation practice, which can be a really simple couple minutes a day, a more intense, there's tons of different types of meditation. For those that are more interested in meditation, there's so many resources out there. We actually did a Friends on Fire episode about it. I can put a link in the show notes too. Liz and I did an Inside Out Money episode on it. I'll also put a link in the show notes. I don't know, Greg, you're a big fan of, I think we're both big fans of meditation.
Yeah. And I think, again, meditation, just like your mindset around money, is a ongoing journey. There's times I'm great about it. There's times I'm not.
Yeah.
So you always strive to do better. I think one point I'll make too is that many people, I think, believe meditation is something that's just going to relax you when you do it. And that is true. Sometimes you have meditations that are kind of agitating. At the end of the day, through meditation, you learn mindfulness. You learn the practice of mindfulness. So even when you're not meditating, you can find it easier to find that space in between the outside action that could affect you and your reaction to it. There's a more space between stimulus and reaction, I guess is the most simple way to put it.
Yeah.
And mindfulness helps you learn that. So I think, yes, big fan of meditation. There's a lot of ways, a lot of resources out there. So I won't talk about that too much. But the other thing I'll say is start somewhere. You don't have to be perfect at it. Spend 5 minutes a day doing it.
Use an app. It's like a lot of things financially even. I'm like, do whatever you feel comfortable with. Use an app. Go to a class. There's a million different ways you can just download a free YouTube video. You don't have to pay anything to meditate. There's a ton of free resources out there. Read a book about it. Listen to a podcast. There's so many resources on meditation. And again, we'll put a link in the show notes to a couple of episodes, and those episodes have a ton of resources if it is something you want to learn more about. Go to Google and say, how do I start meditating? You'll get a million answers. Okay, so moving on, another big recommendation for how to focus on the inside job, if you will, is to stop letting others dictate your worth or your values or goals in life. And this is something, again, that we've mentioned earlier, right? It's a constant cultivation and focus on this, but like not caring or worrying about what other people think, not trying to keep up with the Joneses. So really taking some time to decide what you want in your life and what matters to you, not what society is telling you success looks like, right? I think about myself I always believed, and not just society, but myself told myself that having a successful job and the higher level I could get to and managing people and this title and all these things made me feel successful. And I started redefining that. I started having these moments where I was like, is this actually what I want? Is this what makes me happy? And so spending the time to really think about the life you want to have. And that might be changing your definition of success, right? I changed my definition of success between the age of, when I was, I'd say 15 even, like 15 to 20 to 25 versus when I was, 30 to 40. My definition of success changed drastically to the point where I walked away from an incredibly successful career that had more trajectory ahead of it. And so it doesn't have to be early retirement for you, right? It could be that you just want to have success for you is that you, and I'm going to kind of focus on financial success right now, but it could just be that you don't want to stress about money. You want to have a healthy emergency fund. It might be that you want to get to how you define financial freedom. It might be that you want to be able to have only one person in your household working. It could be a career change to a lower paying job, right? I know someone who went from a higher paid lawyer to become a teacher, and he's much happier, and that's what makes him happy. He makes much less money. Like, I don't know, 10, 20 times less money, right? But he's happy.
On the flip side, success to you might be reaching a pinnacle of business success or career success, and that's okay too.
Exactly.
Still probably helpful though to ensure that you have your finances in order, and then you can gamble and in sense of you can go big and you can work your whole career. And so we're not trying to say success should be
what it looks like to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, Greg. My point is I would highly encourage you to find, like, get away from the noisiness of the world, literally or physically, and go somewhere for the weekend, like go somewhere for a few hours, unplug and take some time to step back and reflect and figure out what success looks like to you, short term, long term, right? It's going to be different for everyone. And related to this, I want to read a quote from the Psychology of Money book. This is by Morgan Housel. And I'm going to kind of like piece together a section of this book, but he was really talking about freedom here. And he said the most powerful common denominator of happiness was simple. And he's quoting someone else now, so this is confusing. Campbell summed it up as saying, having a strong sense of controlling one's life is a more dependable predictor of positive feelings of well-being than any of the objective conditions of life that we have considered. More than your salary, more than the size of your house, more than the prestige of your job. Control over doing what you want, when you want, with the people you want is the broadest lifestyle variable that makes people happy. Money's greatest intrinsic value is the ability to give you control over your time, to obtain, bit by bit, a level of interdependence and autonomy that comes from unspent assets that give you greater control over what you can do and when you can do it. And then goes on to say, using your money to buy time and options has a lifestyle benefit few luxury goods can compete with. This, to me, Greg, this is the money doesn't buy happiness. I mean, money doesn't buy happiness has become like a cliche term said by many people who have a lot of money. So I get it. It often kind of just goes in one ear, out the other for many people who are struggling financially. But that to me is a much more like compelling reminder of just the concept of like why I value freedom and control over my time, right? And again, to your point earlier, Greg, that may not be what you value at this point in your life. I think our guidance is figure out what matters to you and figure out what your definition of success is and focus on that and be thoughtful about what it is.
Yeah, well said. I completely agree with that. And I think for everyone, they've got to figure that out. And it's something I even say to my kids a lot. It's something I say to our kids a lot. Success is something you have to define. And I think for them, I always want to impress upon them that a successful career is a career that they enjoy.
Yeah.
It's something they like doing. Sure, hopefully it's something that gives them some financial stability, but also it doesn't have to be based on how much they make or how high of a regard society holds that particular career type. It's something they enjoy and it's something that they find happiness in as much as you can in any career. And so I'm trying at this age to even impress upon them that success is a term that you can choose what success looks like for you, as opposed to society saying this is what success is and anything but that is a failure to reach your potential. Your potential.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's important coming from parents too, because one of the big messages in that to our kids is we are not defining what success looks like for you, right? You are defining it. And there's no pressure from us other than be a good, upstanding citizen and person and be able to support yourself and take care of yourself and, other things like that. But there's no like, oh, you need to be a lawyer. You need to be a doctor, right? You actually might be happier if you're not one of those two things based on all of the experience I have in the world so far.
And if despite all that, their dream is to be a doctor or a lawyer, I will support them in every way I can.
Yep, exactly.
But I want them to enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I will be just as proud of them if they, regardless of what they do, as long as they are intentional about pursuing a path that they want to.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so another concept And I'm gonna make one more quote from Morgan Housel, Greg, because there's so many good things in that Psychology of Money book, is this concept of enough. And it's something, Erica and I actually did an episode on it called What is Enough? It's one of the top 10 podcast episodes of the year for Inside Out Money. That'd be cool if it was like of the year for all the podcasts. No, just of Inside Out Money. But I love the concept because a lot of the things we're talking about around, just money, being able to buy happiness and everything else is to me like enough. Like I want enough. That is what I strive for. Enough in many different aspects of my life, right? But there's a amount where it's kind of excess and it's not adding incremental value or happiness to my life. And so I just think if many people really like wrapped their heads around this concept of enough, not only would they be happier, but they would make better financial decisions. And so here's a quote from Morgan Housel in the Psychology of Money book. The hardest financial skill is getting the goalposts to stop moving, but it's one of the most important. If expectations rise with results, there's no logic in striving for more because you'll feel the same after putting in more effort. It gets dangerous when the taste of having more money, more power, more prestige increases ambition faster than satisfaction. In that case, one step forward pushes the goalpost 2 steps ahead. You feel as if you're falling behind, and the only way to catch up is to take greater and greater amount of risk. Modern capitalism is a pro at 2 things, generating wealth and generating envy. Perhaps they go hand in hand. Wanting to surpass your peers can be the fuel of hard work, but life isn't any fun without a sense of enough. Happiness, as it's said, is just results minus expectations. And so again, this is a, more kind of long-winded explanation of this concept of enough, but just the idea of like the goalpost moving, right? There's all of this research around no matter what you get, you keep moving the goalpost and you push out where you're happy and satisfied. And back to this being like an inside job, as soon as you sort of can like realize that and wrap your head around it and start to stop that, don't let yourself fall victim or prey to that type of thinking. And again, mindfulness, meditation, but just the concept of being more mindful is what allows you to hone those practices and that skill set of training your mind to realize and recognize that the goalposts keep moving and say like, how do I stop the goalposts from moving?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's well said, and it kind of captures a lot of the themes we're talking about in one statement.
Yeah. And then Greg, he goes on, there's a couple other things he talks about around like social comparison in there. But eventually he says the only way to win is to not fight to begin with, to accept that you might have enough, even if it's less than those around you. Enough is not too little. The idea of having enough might look like a conversation, leaving opportunity and potential on the table. I don't think that's right. Enough is realizing that the opposite, the insatiable appetite for more, will push you to the point of regret. The only way to know how much food you can eat is to eat until you're sick.
So we'll hit a few final thoughts around this inside out mindset. One of them is learning to delay gratification and realizing that this is a muscle that you can grow. I think anytime you can, if you think about finance and financial success, it is delayed gratification. It's choosing to forego expenses, things that might make you somewhat happy in the short term to have this longer term financial stability. And I think that's just a really important thing to think about and just really set that mindset up that it's delayed gratification. You're not foregoing all the great things that life has to offer. You're delaying some of them, not all of them, right? You're not like delaying that you get to eat today. Right? You're delaying something that you maybe can't afford right now, or that would put you in debt, or that would, stop you from being able to build an emergency fund or whatever it might be. And outside people might think of this as deprivation. I got those kinds of comments. Aren't you depriving yourself?
Yeah.
And really what we were doing was delaying gratification.
Yeah. And I would argue I was still quite happy on that road of delaying gratification because I knew what I had defined success, and I knew what I wanted, and I knew what happiness looked like to me. Okay, so one of the final thoughts on this, and we talk about this all the time with many of our recommendations, is so much of this is around like who's in your community and who's around you. But a final recommendation on how you can improve your finances focusing on the inside is to find wise people to emulate. So surround yourself with people who are making the kind of decisions that you want to be making. So there's this like well-known kind of phrase that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And so think about who you are spending your time with, right? Listen to podcasts, read books, follow the right people on social media. Ryan Holiday, who wrote many, many books that are awesome. You should read them all, but one of them is called Discipline is Destiny. This is a quote that Ryan Holiday has said of changing your mindset will build confidence and trust in yourself to stay on track and become more self-disciplined. Applying this knowledge actively in your life and you will be rewarded. And then there's another quote from James Clear's Atomic Habits book where he says, one of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Your culture sets your expectation for what is normal. Surround yourself with people who have the habits that you want to have yourself, and you will rise together. And this to me is such an important point because I think about, like, Greg, you and I were on a walk the other day and we were talking about how much we love the neighborhood we live in, right? And it's a very, like, I'd say upper middle class, but not a like swanky neighborhood in Atlanta. And there's others that we could afford to live in a wealthier neighborhood. And I don't want to. I love this neighborhood. I grew up in this neighborhood. I like the people. It's just like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like down to earth, regular people. There's not a ton of like fancy cars all over the neighborhood. And like we could drive 5-10 minutes to a different neighborhood in Atlanta and it's a different vibe. And I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that's not who I want to surround myself with because I don't want to constantly, I don't know how to describe it, but like, you know what I mean?
Well, and I think there's a subtleness to being around things and it's normalized. And so if you're constantly around people that are wanting to spend more, wanting to show their status through material things, I think it's subtle, but over time that will influence you.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to kind of say, who do I want to live around? Who do I want to include as my friends and
influences and
yeah. Because that will influence you over time, subtly, but it will.
And we talk about this like in the fire community of like, you know, going to Camp Fi. And those are people that are very like-minded and that have the financial values and beliefs that I have. And, you know, we don't believe in everything the same, but like we have a lot in common and they're wise people that I want to emulate and I want to spend more time around people like that. And that is a choice you have in your life. And it is a key way to be able to focus on your inside and improve your finances, you know, on your path to whatever your goals might be. Okay, we shared a lot of different thoughts here today, Greg. I hope this is helpful. I hope this is like a helpful way to kick off the new year, to think about how you want to spend your year and how you want to focus on your finances. Greg, you made the point early on. This is an ongoing practice and exercise. This isn't read one book, listen to one podcast, and all of a sudden you've finished that inside job of improving your mentality and improving your finances. It's a forever thing.
Right. I get turned off when people claim they have the answers and that they know it all and they're perfect about applying it. So I think I will say that Maggie and I are normal people. We struggle with these same impulses. It's an ongoing journey. Sometimes we're good at it and sometimes we're not. And so we are trying to speak to everyone from a place of vulnerability of we are learning, we are constantly evolving. And I think that many people in the fire community are the same way. And so I think there's a lot of great resources out there. And hopefully this is taken in a spirit of us sharing these thoughts as opposed to trying to browbeat anyone. I think just this is ongoing. Some days it'll be easy. Some days it'll be really hard.
Some days I'm tempted with stuff. Some days I want to give all of my worldly possessions away, right? Like it varies greatly.
Yeah. So do your best. Always strive to do better. And when you have moments of slipping, you know, look to those people around you that are going to reinforce those positive messages.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Okay. Thank you all for listening. Happy New Year, by the way. I hope this is an awesome 2024. I hope that we will be putting out 52 Inside Out Money podcasts for you this year to help keep you motivated and interested on your financial journey this year. We know your time is super limited and valuable. We always appreciate you spending some of it with us. If you have enjoyed this episode, we'd love it when you leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts, or you can leave us a rating on Spotify also. We really appreciate it.
We also encourage you to share this episode with a friend or family member to encourage ongoing discussions about money. And then also you can subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, if you have any thoughts or questions, we always love to hear from you, and you can leave us a voicemail or text us at 404-981-3370, or you can hit us up on Instagram. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Maggie.
Bye.
Bye.
We come